In 2011, in the quiet city of Gary, Indiana, a small rental house became the center of one of the most terrifying paranormal cases ever reported in the United States. The home sat on Carolina Street, a modest two-story building in a neighborhood where nothing unusual was expected to happen. But inside that house, a family claimed they were experiencing something impossible to explain. Strange footsteps, voices coming from empty rooms, and shadows moving through the halls at night. At first, neighbors believed the stories were simply rumors, but soon police officers, social workers, and even medical professionals would witness events inside the house that left them deeply disturbed. Some would later describe the house as a place controlled by something dark. And according to the family who lived there, whatever was inside the house was not just a ghost. They believed it was something far more dangerous, something they described as demons. This is the story of the house that became known as the Demon House. The house stood quietly at 3860 Carolina Street in Gary, Indiana. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary home, a small white building with 2 stories and a narrow front porch. Nothing about the house suggested danger. But in 2011, a woman named Latoya Ammons moved into the house with her 3 children, hoping to build a peaceful life. At first, everything seemed normal. The family settled in, unpacked their belongings, and tried to make the house feel like home. But only a few days after moving in, something strange began to happen. Late at night, they started hearing footsteps, slowly moving across the floor upstairs. Doors would open when no one was near them, and sometimes dark shapes seemed to move through the hallway, disappearing the moment anyone looked directly at them. At first, Latoya tried to ignore it. Old houses make noises, floors creak, pipes rattle, and shadows can play tricks on the eyes. But what happened next would soon convince the family that something inside the house was very real. Not long after the strange noises began, the activity inside the house started to grow more disturbing. Latoya claimed that one night she noticed a swarm of large black flies gathering near the back porch door. It was the middle of winter. Temperatures outside were far too cold for flies to survive. Yet somehow, dozens of them kept appearing inside the house. No matter how many were removed, more seemed to return. Soon after that, the family began hearing footsteps again, but this time the sounds were heavier. Slow, deliberate steps moving across the floor above them. Sometimes the footsteps would continue for several minutes, even though no one was upstairs. At other times, the family claimed to hear strange knocking sounds coming from inside the walls. 3 knocks, then silence, then 3 knocks again. And late at night, Latoya said she sometimes felt something else inside the house, a presence, something watching, something waiting in the darkness just beyond the hallway. At that point, the family began to fear that whatever was inside the house was not simply a ghost. It felt much darker. As the strange events inside the house continued, the situation began to escalate. Latoya claimed that her children were starting to behave in ways she could not explain. At times, they spoke in strange voices. At other moments, they seemed to lose control of their bodies. One afternoon, the family reported hearing loud banging sounds coming from inside the house. Heavy footsteps running across the floor upstairs. Concerned neighbors eventually contacted local authorities. When police officers arrived at the house, they expected to find a simple explanation. But according to official reports, some officers claimed they experienced unusual events inside the home. One officer later wrote in his report that he saw dark shadows moving through the hallway. Another reported hearing unexplained noises coming from an empty room. Soon after, Child Protection Services and medical professionals became involved in the case. They believed the family needed help. But during one hospital visit, an event occurred that would soon make headlines across the country. According to multiple witnesses, one of the children suddenly walked backwards up a hospital wall. Doctors, nurses, and a caseworker were all present, and what they claimed to see that day would make the story of the demon house known across the United States.
After the events at the hospital, the story of the house in Gary, Indiana, began spreading quickly. Reports describing the strange case appeared in local newspapers. Soon, paranormal investigators, priests, and researchers started taking interest in the story. Many believed the house might be the location of a powerful haunting. Others suspected something even darker. One of the people who later became involved in the case was a Catholic priest. After hearing the family's claims, he agreed to visit the house. According to those present, the priest said the atmosphere inside the building felt extremely heavy, oppressive, as if something inside the house was resisting anyone who entered. During several visits, the priest reportedly performed multiple blessings inside the home. Rooms were prayed over. Holy water was used. But despite these efforts, the strange activity inside the house did not completely stop. Footsteps were still heard at night. Doors continued to move on their own, and the feeling that something unseen was present remained. At that point, some investigators began to believe the house might not simply be haunted. They feared it could be something far more dangerous, a place where something darker had taken hold. As the disturbing story continued to spread, it soon caught the attention of a well-known paranormal investigator. His name was Zach Bagans. Known for investigating some of the most haunted locations in America, Zach became interested in the strange events reported inside the house in Gary. After speaking with witnesses, reviewing reports, and studying the claims made by the family, he decided to travel to the location himself. When Zach first arrived at the house, he described feeling an unusual heaviness in the air. A strange silence surrounded the building. Inside, the rooms appeared ordinary: old furniture, narrow hallways, and quiet, empty spaces. But according to Zach, the atmosphere inside the house felt deeply unsettling. During his investigation, he and his team used cameras, audio recorders, and various paranormal detection devices. They hoped to capture evidence of whatever presence might still remain inside the house. And during several nights of investigation, the team reported experiencing strange events. unexplained noises, sudden equipment failures, and moments when the entire house seemed to fall into a heavy, unnatural silence. For Zach, the experience would become one of the most disturbing investigations of his career, and what he eventually decided to do with the house would shock many people. After completing his investigation, Zach Bagans became convinced that the house carried a deeply disturbing energy. According to him, the location felt unlike any other place he had investigated before. The stories told by the family, the reports written by police officers, and the events witnessed at the hospital all pointed towards something extremely unusual. But Zach believed the house itself might be dangerous. Not just emotionally disturbing, but spiritually harmful. After documenting the investigation, he made a decision that surprised many people. Instead of preserving the house as a paranormal location, Zach decided the building should be destroyed. In 2016, the small house on Carolina Street was demolished. The walls came down, the roof collapsed, and the structure that had become known as the Demon House was reduced to rubble. Some people believed this would finally end the strange story, but others questioned whether destroying the house could really remove whatever had once existed inside it. Because sometimes the place is not the only thing that carries the darkness.
Today, the house that once stood on Carolina Street is gone. Where the building once stood, there is now only an empty piece of land. No walls, no hallway, no dark staircase, just silence. But the story of the Demon House continues to be discussed by investigators, researchers, and people who study paranormal cases. Some believe the events were caused by a powerful haunting. Others believe the case may have had psychological explanations. And some investigators believe something far darker may have been involved, a force that used fear, confusion, and manipulation. The truth behind what happened inside that small house in Gary, Indiana, has never been fully proven. But one thing is certain: the reports, the witnesses, and the strange events connected to that small house in Gary, Indiana, have left behind one of the most disturbing paranormal cases in modern American history. And like many mysteries in the world of the unexplained, the Demon House case may never truly be solved.
This file remains open until the next case.